Hello guys, welcome to 𝐂𝐤𝐶𝐬. My name is Vishal Mankar, and in this video we are gonna see the 12th trigger scenario of our English trigger playlist. So let's understand the requirement first. Okay, so the requirement is whenever a new transaction is performed successfully, then update the customer balance field. Okay, and if the transaction type is deposit, then we have to add that amount into the balance, or if the transaction type is withdraw, then we have to minus that amount from the balance. Okay, so we have one more note here, that is customer and transaction has a lookup detail relationship. So I will explain you what is the meaning of this scenario. So let's log into the Salesforce org. We log in to our Salesforce org. As you can see here, I have two objects. First is customer, second is transaction. So here customer is parent and transaction is child. So one customer can have multiple transactions. Okay, so the requirement here is whenever a transaction is performed, that means whenever a transaction record is created associated with this customer. Okay, then if the transaction is, I will show you how to create the transaction. So if the transaction type is like deposit and we are depositing 100 rupees, so the 100 rupees will be added to the customer's balance field. Or if the transaction type is withdraw, that means we are withdrawing 100 rupees from the customer balance. That means the 100 rupees should be minus from the customer's balance. Okay, and we also have to implement one functionality, that let's say customer has like 0 rupees in his account and we are withdrawing 100 rupees, so it should throw an error that you don't have money to withdraw. Okay, so we have to write the trigger for that. So let's jump on the developer console. Okay, so we jumped on the developer console. Here we will click on file, new and apex trigger. So we will give the trigger name as transaction trigger and we will select S object as transaction. Why? Because we have to perform our logic when the transaction record is inserted. Okay, like when the transaction record related to this customer is inserted, then we have to check if that customer has like balance or not. If it has balance, okay, and we are withdrawing more than that balance, then we have to throw the error. Otherwise we have to add or withdraw the money to the balance. So that's why we are selecting here transaction as S object. So let's click on submit. So we have created our trigger on the transaction object. Okay, so whenever the transaction record is created, so before creating it will check if that customer has balance in his account or not, and based on that it will perform the operation. So the next step is to select the event. So here we will select the before insert event only. Why? Because before inserting the transaction record, we have to check if that customer has some money in his account or not. And if it has some money, then we will withdraw the money from his account. But if he don't have any money and he is trying to withdraw the money, then we have to throw the error. Okay, so that's why we will select here the before insert event. So as a best practice, so we have to write here trigger dot is before and trigger dot is insert. So as a best practice, we have written here trigger dot before and trigger dot is insert. So what we will do, we will call our any handler class inside this, so that that handler class method will be only called in before insert operation of the transaction object. So let me create the one class. So to create the class, what we will do, we will click on file, new and apex class. We will give our apex class name. Our apex class name is transaction trigger handler and click on OK. So guys, our apex class is created. Let me create one method inside it. Okay, so I created one method which is a static method and the method name is before event handler. So this before event handler method will contain all the logic that needs to perform on the before insert context. So we will call this method. We can call this method class name dot method name, because as we know that the method is static. That's why we can directly call using class name dot method name. We will save it. So guys, our trigger and apex class both are saved. Okay, as you can see here. So now it's time to pass the parameter. So in before insert event, what we have to pass, we have to pass only trigger dot new. Okay, we don't have anything to pass, so just we will pass trigger dot new. Trigger dot new means it will contain the list of transaction record. Okay, it will contain the list of transaction record without id. Without id means because that transaction record is not inserted yet, it is in before insert, like it is not inserted yet. That's why that list of transaction will contain every field value except the id, because it is not inserted. That's why. So we have passed the trigger dot new here, but we haven't catch here. That's why we will write here list of transaction and we will give any name to the list, like transaction list. Okay, so we have created a list here. That means whenever a transaction record is inserted, before inserting the record, it will fire this trigger and it will call this method, and we are passing trigger dot new. That means list of transaction record and that list of transaction record will come into the transaction list. So as a best practice, we will check the transaction list should not be empty. Okay, so we have check here null check. That means if this transaction list is empty, okay, then that means that transaction list don't have any records to process. Then we have to stop our code there. That means we are writing here return. That means we have to stop the code. So guys, now we will move forward. Here what we will do, we will loop over the list of transaction. That means we will loop over the transaction list. So we are looping over the transaction list because we need to take the existing customer. Okay, we need the existing customer, and from that existing customer we need two things. First thing is the customer ID along with the how much balance he has. Okay, so that's why we need to loop over the transaction list. So here we need the customer ID from the transaction record. So to get the customer ID, we will check here one null check that t.customer not equal to null. That means that transaction should have the customer populated. Then only we will use that customer and add it to the set. So for that we will create one set variable here. So guys, here we have created one set, that is existing customer IDs, and in this set we are adding the customers that we need to like check. We have to check the customer ID versus its balance. So we are adding the t.customers here. So or the existing customers that is like present into the transaction list, so we are adding into this set. So now we get the existing customers. So using this existing customer, we will query on the customers to get the existing customer. So let me create a list of customer. So guys, here we have queried on the customer record where ID in existing customer IDs limit 50,000. So we need to loop over this, and we need to take the customer ID versus how many balance it has. So let me loop over it. But before looping over it, we need to check one more time null check that this list should not be null. Okay, then only we need to loop over it. So let me check the null check here. So guys, you can see here I check the null check here. That means existing customer is empty not. That means existing customer should not be empty. Then only we need to loop over it. So let me write down the for loop here. So guys, as you can see here, I am looping over the existing customers to get the customer ID versus its balance. So before taking the customer ID, what we have to do, we have to create one map of ID versus decimal. So guys, as you can see here, I have created one map variable here, that is map of ID versus decimal, and the name of the map is existing customer ID versus balance. So in this map, what we are doing, we are putting the existing customer ID versus its balance. So let me put it here. So c.id versus c.balance. Okay, so guys, by this way we take the existing customer ID versus its balance to check if how many balance it has. Okay, so we need to pass here the customer ID, and this map will throw the how many balance it has. For example, let's say this customer 0011, if we pass this ID, then that map will return the 200 as a balance. Okay, so we need this map to check the existing balance. Okay, that's why we created this map. We loop over this existing customers, we queried here, and etc. Okay, so let's move forward. So guys, now it's time to write the actual logic. So to write down the actual logic, what we have to do, we have to loop over the again this transaction list. Why we have to loop again on the transaction list? Because in this for loop we will write down the our actual logic for deposit and withdraw. Okay, so let me write down the first condition here. Okay, so I write down the first condition here into the transaction list, that is trigger.new. Okay, so the first condition is t.customer. T means here transaction. Transaction.customer should not be null, transaction type should not be null, and transaction amount should not be null. Okay, and if any of them is null, then we have to throw the error. Okay guys, so I will explain you why we write this condition here. Because let's say we are inserting a transaction record, we will click on new, and then we are inserting a transaction record before providing the valid or all the required information. Like required information is customer, transaction type, and amount. Let's say we populated the customer, but we didn't specify the transaction type and amount. So it should throw an error that we are missing the required information, like don't miss the required info. Okay, so it tells us to, like, before creating the transaction you have to populate all the required information, then move forward. That's why we write this logic here, that t.customer should not be null. That means this customer field should not be null, this transaction type should not be null, and the amount should not be null, as you can see here. And if any of them is null, then we have to throw the error like this. So let's save our class and move forward. So guys, inside this if block, what we are doing, we are going to write down our logic for the deposit transaction type and the withdraw transaction type. So we will write down one more condition here to check if that what is the transaction type, like if it is withdraw or deposit, and based on that transaction type we will do our further logic. So let me write down here. Okay guys, so we have written here one more condition to check what is the transaction type of the inserted record. Let's say we are inserting this record, so it will check first what is the transaction type, if it is deposit or if it is withdraw. If it is none, then we can get this error. Okay, and if it is like deposit, then we will add this amount to the customer's balance field. And if it is withdraw, what we are doing, we are checking like if it has like 100 and customer has like 50 rupees in his account, then there will be an error will be thrown to like you don't have insufficient balance, like you have insufficient balance like this. And if customer has like 500 rupees and we are withdrawing 100 rupees, so it will withdraw that money and it will remove or it will minus this 100 from the 500. So we have to write down our logic inside this if block, I mean if and else if block. So to write down the deposit logic, what we have to do, we have to write down our deposit logic inside this if block. Okay, so let me write down. So guys, before moving forward, what we have to do, we have to create one more map variable to like store the new value or new balance associated with the deposit, or new value associated when the withdrawal is happening. So let me create one map variable here. Okay, so guys, we have created one more map variable with like id versus decimal, and the map variable name is customer id versus new balance. Okay, so in this map what we are doing, we are putting the customer id versus the new balance. New balance means what is the existing balance plus what is the amount that we are depositing. Like let's say existing balance is 100 rupees and we are again depositing 100 rupees. Okay, so we have to add here like existing balance, that is 100, plus new balance, that is 100. So we have to write here map like customer id versus new balance dot put. Okay, first is id means t dot customer versus the existing balance. So we have our existing balance into this map. As you can see there, we have to provide the customer's id, then it is providing to the existing balance. So what we will do here, we will check if that existing balance dot get t dot customer. So we are providing the customer id here and it is throwing the balance, so all the balance would be here. Okay, so if this balance not equal to null, then use that balance here. I will explain you what does that mean. Else use 0 plus t dot amount, like this. I will explain you what does that mean. Okay, it may sound bit complex but it is easy. I will explain you. Okay guys, so I will explain you what does that mean. Just consider you are inserting a new transaction record with transaction type as deposit and you are adding 100 as amount, 100 rupees. Okay, so what we have to do, if the transaction type is deposit, then in this map we are putting the t dot customer. T dot customer means the customer record. Okay, comma the decimal value means we have to take the existing value first. Existing value means how much balance is here. Like if it has 200, then we will take 200, but if it has don't, that means if it don't have any balance, then we have to take balance as 0. So that's the logic I written here. That means if customer balance dot get t dot customer, we are passing the customer and it is giving us balance. Okay, so all the balance would be present here, and if it is not null, then take that balance. Here in this condition balance is not null because balance is 200, that's why it is taking the 200. See, existing balance is like 200 not equal to null. Yeah, it is not null, it is 200, that's why it is taking the 200. But if let's consider this balance don't have any value, okay, so that means balance is null. So what it will do, it will check again, check condition, so it will be null, so it will not take this, it will take 0 as a balance. Okay, so that means we are taking the existing balance plus whatever the amount that we are inserting into the transaction record, that we have to add there. So in this map we are adding the customer id versus the old value plus new value because we are depositing here, that's why we are selecting operator here as plus. So same for the withdraw we have to write down, but before writing this logic, what we have to check, we have to check if that customer has some money or not. If it has money or if it don't have sufficient money, then we have to throw the error. Okay, So let me write down the logic, and I hope you understand what I write into this deposit section here. Like the logic, it is pretty simple. I just took the existing balance, and if that existing balance don't have any value, then I am taking the 0 as a balance, and I'm adding the amount to that balance. Simple. Okay guys, so as you can see here, I write one logic here to throw the error on the transaction record. If the customer balance is null, okay, that customer don't have the balance and he's trying to withdraw some money, then he should get an error like you don't have balance or insufficient balance. Or let's say if the customer has some balance but he's trying to like withdraw the amount more than its balance, so he should get an error. So this is the condition that I write to throw the error. For example, let's say this is the customer, it has 300 as balance, okay, and you are trying to withdraw 500, so you should get an error. Or just imagine this balance is empty, there is no balance, and you are trying to withdraw a money, okay, like 100 rupees, so you should get an error because you don't have the balance, you don't have the sufficient balance. So that's why I write down this condition like into the existing customer id versus balance map, where we have to put the customer id and it will give us the existing balance for that customer. And if the existing balance is null and we are trying to withdraw something, then he should get an error. Or if the existing customer balance has some value, okay, that means it has some balance like 300, okay, and but it is less than the amount that you are trying to withdraw. For example, you are trying to withdraw 500 rupees, so you should get an error like this. So I hope you understand this condition to throw the error. So if you didn't understand, you can rewatch it, it is very important. Let's move to the next part. So guys, as I told you earlier, we have to do the same logic we did for the deposit, but we just have to make one change here. Like instead of adding here, we are withdrawing. Withdrawing means we are minus the amount from the balance. So that's why we have to use here minus sign or minus operator, so that it will check what is the existing balance. This logic, I highlight this logic. It will check what is the existing balance. If the existing balance is there, okay, it is not null, then we will take this as the existing balance. Okay, as you can see, it is checking if it is not null existing balance, then take the existing balance. But if it is null, then it is taking 0 as the existing balance. Like if the balance is empty, then we are taking 0 as the existing balance and we are minus the amount from that existing balance. Okay, we did the same logic for we did for the deposit. Okay, I hope you understand how this logic and this map works for the deposit and withdraw. Okay guys, so if you didn't understand, you can rewatch it again. Because why I'm telling you again and again, because this part is very crucial and very important to understand. So it is helpful to you to build the logic, and it is also helpful to you in the interview perspective. Okay, so let's move to the next part. As I can see here in this map, I get the customer IDs along with the latest balance that we should need to populate on the customers. Okay, so what we can do, we can find the customers using this key set or the using this customer IDs, and we can update the balance which is present into the map. So let me loop over the customer IDs. So let me go to the outside of the for loop. Okay, here the for loop ends. Let me loop over it. Okay guys, so as you can see here, I am looping over this map like customer id versus new balance dot key set, because my all the customer IDs are present into the key section of this map. That's why I take the key set, and the data type is id, and into the cid instance the id of every customer record is present. Okay, so to update the customer record, let me create the customer instance. So I have created one customer instance here. Okay, and the instance name is C, and I will find the which customer we have to update using its ID. So C dot ID equals to CID. I mean this instance. So this instance will take the customer record with this ID which is present into the CID instance, and now we have to update the balance. So we will take the balance field. C dot balance equals to, so whatever the latest balance that is present into this map, we will take it and assign it to the balance field. Okay, so by this way, as you can see here in this map, we provide the customer ID and it will return the new balance, or we can say the latest balance that we have to update into the balance. So by this way, I got the customer record that I have to update using the customer ID, and I also got the balance, okay, that we have to populate onto the customer record by using this map. Okay, now what we have to do, we just have to update the customer record. I will create a variable, I mean a list variable, list of customer. I will put that instance, that is C, into that list, and I will update it. So let me create a list variable here. So guys, I have created one list of customer variable name update balance on customers, and what I will do, into that list I will add that customer record, that is C, and I will update this list. So before updating, what I will do, I will check null check. That means if that list should not be empty. If it is not empty, then I can do the update DML, like we can update the customers. So let me update the customers here. Okay, so guys, as you can see here, I am checking the null check here, like update balance on customers. If it is not empty, then we have to update this list, and in that list all the customers record that we have to update is present. Okay, so guys, I hope you understand all the trigger logic. Okay, so if you didn't understand, you can rewatch it again, because it is really very important, and I think it is one of the most asked question into the interview perspective. Okay, so yeah, so let's jump on the UI and we will test our logic. So let me create one new customer record here. Okay guys, so I have created one new customer record, that is customer 15. Okay, so let me create one transaction record. So what we will do, we will check our first condition. First condition is, what if we didn't populate any required fields? So it should throw an error, and it is throwing an error that don't miss the required information, because customer, transaction type and amount is mandatory. Because if we don't provide the required information, so the transaction will not be processed. Okay, so we have provided here customer, and we will select transaction type as null and amount, and we will try to save. We will again get an error. Why? Because we didn't provided the required information, that's why. So here what we will do, in our balance we have 0 as a balance or null as a balance, and we will try to withdraw some money, like we will try to withdraw 100. So it should throw an error, because in our balance we don't have anything and we are trying to withdraw, so it should throw an error. So guys, as you can see here, we are getting an error, that is insufficient balance to customer's account. Okay, so if we select deposit here, so it will add this 100 to this balance. So let me add it. I will click on save, and record is created. I will refresh the customer record, and we can see here the balance 100 is populated. Let me try to create one more record, and I will again add some money into it, like I will add 200 rupees into it. So 200 plus 100, it should show 300. As you can see here, the 300 balance is populated. Okay, so our both testing scenarios are successfully completed. Let me jump on the next testing scenario. Let me create another transaction record. Okay, and as you can see here, in the balance we have 300 rupees, and let me try to withdraw more amount, like let me try to withdraw 500 rupees. So it should throw an error, because we have 300 rupees and you are trying to withdraw 500 rupees, so it should throw an error, and it is throwing an error, that is insufficient balance to customer's account. Okay, but if we select transaction type as deposit, that means we are adding the money, we are adding the 500 plus 300, it should be 800. So let me refresh this customer record. So guys, as you can see here, 800 as a balance is updated. Okay, so I think, yeah, by this way all the testing scenarios are covered and our trigger logic is executed properly. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so guys, I will recommend you to please rewatch this video once again and try to understand how I write this logic, because the similar kind of logic we are writing into the next upcoming trigger scenarios also. So guys, please stay tuned and try to understand how I write the logic. Okay, so guys, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and please like, share, comment, and if you have any questions or anything or any suggestion, you can drop it into the comment box. And one more thing I want to tell you guys, that into the description of every video I have added all the social media links, like my personal LinkedIn and channel LinkedIn, Telegram, Instagram, WhatsApp group, Facebook, and every group. Okay, you can join there, and you can also connect with me personally on the LinkedIn and on the WhatsApp. Okay, so guys, please follow me on Instagram, and also join the WhatsApp group and LinkedIn group, so that you can get all the latest hiring and all the latest videos that I post on the CV Clouds. Okay, so thank you so much guys.